US culture shock, American time zones.
That can't be real. The fact that America is a weird place will come as a surprise to absolutely nobody who watches the news. But believe it or not, it's sometimes weird in an adorable way. For instance, earlier I did something that I haven't done since 1998.
What you do?
I looked at my calendar, and in it, it reminded me that soon here in America, we're going to be altering our clocks. This is something we don't do in Britain until weeks later. It's a very confusing time of year.
Oh, yeah, true. All your guys' clocks have turned. You've always been telling me. All the past week. Do they change it different days, or is it all the same day for you guys?
I need coffee. But it isn't just daylight saving that's unusual.
You know, because you're different time zones.
That happens in Britain too. Time zones in the United States can be a bit of a culture shock for somebody who grew up in Britain.
Wait. I need to study this. I talk to a lot of Americans now. Eastern 6 p.m. Then for Central's 1 hour beyond 5, and then Mountain. Wait, is that what you call the region? Mountain is 4 p.m. and then Pacific is 3 p.m. Alaska's 2 p.m.
Zones in the United States can be a bit of a culture shock for somebody who grew up in Britain. Firstly, you should know I come from a country where there is just one time zone. If I were to drive from my hometown of Grimsby to, I don't know, the southwest coast of Wales, I will have driven through 2 countries, seen signposts in 2 different languages, and the time will be the same in my destination as it was in the place that I started.
Yo, chat, is this crazy to you? From one side of the UK to the other, and it's actually like the biggest width it looks like is 6-hour drive. That's actually kind of long. Yeah, this must be the biggest width in the UK. Actually, no, maybe from here to here is longer. But is that crazy? The whole width of the UK kind of is 6 hours long, and that's from England to Wales, 2 different countries. Is that mad? It's not long to you guys?
In other words, for the 26 years that I lived in Britain, I never had to think about time zones. I didn't even know time zones existed until I was about 9. And I only discovered that because I went on a 2-week holiday to Florida with my parents. I wasn't on my own. And so the mere concept of living in a country that has more than one time zone was alien to me at first. How did I combat this? I fought fire with fire. I became an alien myself. I moved to America, and when I did,
time zones always annoy me when you lose the hour. When you gain the hour, that's all good. I love it. You know when like the time comes back and goes, whatever you call it, right? You know, like when it's like it goes to 1 a.m. and then it goes back down to 12. You're like, oh yes, I got a free hour. Yes. But then when it goes to 12 and it goes up to 1, you're like, bro, come on now. Like, really? You're just gonna take an hour away from me like that? You're just gonna rob an hour?
Prepared that I would change time zones
Steal
from
an hour,
my
buddy.
parents back in Britain. I understood I was moving to Eastern Standard Time. That's the time zone in central Indiana where I used to live. But then, you know, my first job in the country was working in a call center where you are talking to Americans all across the country, and actually in some cases in the US territories as well. So it meant that I was having to deal with people that were on multiple different time zones to me. America has 6 time zones. If you don't include the territory.
Right, hear me out. Because there's a lot of Americans in the Twitch stream right now. By the way, YouTube, if you're not joining the Twitch streams, you're missing out. Because this is where I actually engage with you on American topics. Okay? Twitch.tv/L3WG. But hear me out, right, chat? Would it be so bad to put the whole of America, because it's one country, on the same time zone? Would that be bad? Like, that would make so much more sense for everybody. Because it confuses me talking to you guys. And I bet it confuses you guys if, like, you got family in different time zones. Like, let's say you guys got people in Pacific and you're Eastern, right? It would be bad if it was the same. Really? Is that just because, like, it'll be too dark at a certain time and too light at a certain time? Is that why? Sunrises and set will be off. Right. Okay. Gotcha. Fair enough.
If you
It's
do
not
include
confusing.
the territories,
It is
it has
to me.
9. So to somebody from a small country, that itself is quite weird because it speaks to just how large America is.
Wait,
and it
9?
is, if you do include the territories, it has 9.
Oh,
so
the
to
other
somebody from a
territories.
small country, that itself is quite weird because it speaks to just how large America is. And it is. But that's not where it ends. Because over the years of doing this channel, I've learned a lot about America as a whole, not just the places I've lived in. And so I have learned that the time zones in this country are a little odd. The first example that I'm going to give you actually involves the 2 states that I've lived in, Indiana and Illinois. For context, Illinois, where I currently live, is entirely on Central Time. For those of you not in the know, that is 1 hour behind Eastern Standard Time and is 6 hours behind Greenwich Mean Time, which is what we're on in Britain. Most of Indiana is on Eastern Standard Time.
What do you mean
However,
most?
there are 2 portions of Indiana that are on Central Time, just like Illinois. Southwest Indiana and Northwest Indiana.
Wait. You got 2 places of the same state that's on a different time zone? Okay, yo, that's confusing. I understand different time zones for all the states, but the same state has 2 different time. Huh?
And it's Northwest Indiana that I am most familiar with because every holiday, my wife and I drive down from Chicago to Central Indiana to meet
Like, chat.
my Indiana. And it's not
Like, chat, imagine you live on the line here. It's 11 p.m. McDonald's opens at 12. Let's just say, like, I'm not using the right times, whatever, yeah. But let's just say the shop opens at 12. It's 11. You spend 5 minutes crossing. You cross, yeah? Maybe 10 minutes. It's not open yet. Because you're too early. You're too early.
that are on Central Time, just
That's
like
trippy.
Illinois, Southwest
trippy.
Indiana and Northwest Indiana. And it's Northwest Indiana that I am most familiar with because every holiday, my wife and I drive down from Chicago to Central Indiana to meet with her family. And once you enter Indiana, you don't just see the time alter by heading east, you also see it by heading south, which means that part of the Eastern Standard Time of Indiana is further west than part of the Central Time of Indiana. Why
What?
is this? Well, largely because there are other commuters that come out of Chicago to Northwest Indiana, and the ruling, I think, at a local level,
Hey, chat, I wonder if your phone would explode. You know how your phone updates automatically because of its location? Imagine if you just kept running back and forth, 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 back. Do you reckon your phone would just blow up? Because it's just constantly updating the time. If you, let's say you do it 1,000 times. Would it just, boom, would it just blow up?
I don't know who makes
Sad
these
enough.
decisions, said that that area for Chicago commuters will retain Chicago's time. As somebody who's lived in multiple time zones, one thing always seems to remain the same. No matter where you are, your
Did he just teleport in the future? I swear he's just grown his beard. Am I tripping? Or is his beard just like got 5 times thicker in the space of 10 seconds? Did he go to a different time zone?
I think at a local
It did.
level, I don't know who makes these
It did.
decisions. Time. As somebody who's lived in multiple time zones, one thing always seems to remain the same. No matter where you are, your personal data seems to be roaming
Oh,
around
it's a sponsor. It was pre-recorded probably.
the internet like a heaven for discovery. It's a service to brokers giving you boundaries controlled in the pond with I north-south.
That makes sense.
By using the code lost in the pond.
That makes sense.
Link is in my description below. Several years ago, I visited another state that begins with I, Idaho. They have a more extreme example of what I was just talking about. It's basically a north-south divide. The southern half of Idaho, where I visited Boise, was on Mountain Time Zone, and the northern panhandle was on Pacific Time, even though Idaho is nowhere near the Pacific. For context, Mountain Time in southern Idaho and much of
Honestly, right? If I was living in these places, I'm just going to leave it to my phone. Bro, whatever my phone tells what time it is, boom. It's too much thought process. You're in the same state in different times. It's like
the Rocky
no wonder
Mountains
people are late to
is
work.
1 hour behind Central Time here, 2 hours behind Eastern Standard Time, and 7 hours behind Great Britain. So when I flew due north from Boise to Coeur d'Alene, we went back.
Imagine your work is in the same state but an hour behind. I'd be late every day. Well, then again, you'd be used to it, but trippy.
in time by going north. I wanted to call myself in the past to see if I was still at the airport in Boise. Also, if you're wondering why I'm pronouncing it Boise instead of Boise, that's how the locals told me to say it. So if they lied, take it up with them.
Boise.
Actually, when I was in Idaho, I got curious about all of this and I started looking at the nearby surrounding states to see if there are any other quirks that I should know about. And that brought me straight to Oregon. This is a state that can say, hello, we are actually by the Pacific. Pacific time zone suits us. What are you doing, Idaho? To which Idaho could just turn around and say, what are you doing with our mountains? Because in the east of the state, for some inexplicable reason, Oregon is on mountain time. Are there mountains in that part of Oregon? I don't know. And you might think, well, it's Oregon, you know, keep Portland weird. Well, Portland is on the other side of the state, for one, so they've got nothing to do with this. And secondly, I need to point out something that I don't know if you're aware of this. I don't know if anyone's talked about this, if this is one of those like pub quiz pieces or not. But because Oregon is partially on mountain time, and because Florida...
Oh, wait, hold up. You can't see mountain. Let me show you mountain.
Florida is partially on central time. Florida and Oregon are only one time zone apart.
Okay, that does not make sense. Wait, okay. That hurts my brain. That hurts my brain. How you... Bro, Florida is like very, very eastern. This is very, very west. This is 1 hour apart, yeah. Crazy.
Oregon's facing the
tripping.
Pacific Ocean. Florida is facing the Atlantic Ocean and occasionally the Gulf of
That's
whatever
tripping.
we're calling it these days. There's no way in my head that people in the Florida Panhandle are calling relatives in Eastern Oregon and only being an hour ahead. I'm not having that. There's some warped, messed up logic going on with both the US map and whoever it is who creates time zones.
Listen,
who is that? The interstate.
I fully understand the different time zones, right? Yeah, it's a little bit, you know, confusing for me, because UK is just one time zone. But this don't make sense. How could people in Florida be 1 hour apart as Oregon when it's so far west? But then this section is 3 hours apart from the Florida okay, right. Okay, that don't make any sense. They got to do some remapping here. They got to do some remapping.
Commerce Commission. And then we get onto the topic of daylight saving time. Nobody wants to alter the clocks, even though digital technology largely does that for us, because it messes us up for, you know, a day, and then we're used to it. Anyway, the point is, America is going to put its clocks forward on March the 9th. Britain, meanwhile, doesn't change things until March 30th. So for me, there's always a 3-week window in which I completely forget about this disparity when contacting people back in Britain. And this is a big...
Wait, when do we change? Do you know, chat? Do we go forward or back? Do I lose or gain?
problem when I'm calling Uncle Toby, because he only gets one call a day. And if I get the time wrong in my head and he was waiting for me, that's his entire call for the day gone. I know we don't have sympathy for him. But something to do with daylight saving that I've only realized since doing this channel is that I lied a moment ago. I said America puts its clocks forward. But to quote the Secretary of Defense from Independence Day, that's not entirely accurate. Because there are two states that decided we're not going to take part in daylight saving. That's for you idiots.
Wait, really?
That's Arizona and Hawaii. Hawaii will make the claim, we're close to the equator. Our sunlight situation is pretty consistent throughout the year, but in like not that accent. And that's fair.
Wait, that's actually a fair point. That's actually a fair point. If going back and forward don't affect their days with the sunlight and that, what's the point? If you don't have to, what's the point? What's the point of doing it?
Fair enough. I'd probably do the same thing too if I was a collection of islands in the Pacific. But what is Arizona's excuse? It's a desert, right? That is also valid. But yes, the contiguous state of Arizona also doesn't observe daylight saving. That's not entirely accurate. Oh, really, Mr. Secretary? Why is that? Because of here. Oh yes, that place in northeastern Arizona that does observe daylight saving while the rest of the state points and laughs. So what's going on there? Well, I actually spoke to my patrons about this on my secret live stream.
I'm just thinking this through in my head. This is what happens. I think through, how do you want to structure things?
Hey, chat, do you prefer lots of the palm with a beard or like clean shaven? I like it more beard. It gives me more American vibes. When he's got the bigger beard, I get more of the American vibes from him. I like the more American vibes, Lawrence.
I think Arizona's its own section.
For those of you who don't know, this area of Arizona is a Native American reservation known as the Navajo Nation, and they, unlike the rest of Arizona, observe daylight saving. You'll also notice that the Hopi Reservation, which is surrounded by the Navajo Nation, doesn't observe it. So commuting down here would make the Chicago to Indianapolis route feel like a mere introduction to time travel. And that's my 2 cents on why American time zones are weird. At least I thought.
You know what? Let's stop using time as like time is in like day and that. Let's just the whole entire planet just go on time, the same time, and just whatever it be, we'll get used to it. If your morning is 6 a.m., it's 6 a.m. If it's 11 p.m., it's 11 p.m. Let's just scrap it. Let's just scrap it and just whatever it is, it is. You know what I'm saying? That is just simple. And then we can all celebrate New Year's together. You know what I'm saying? Every single year, I'm seeing New Year's celebration before me. I'm like, hey, buddy, I ain't in New Year yet. What's going on? What's going on? Like, hey, you know what I mean? They're ruining it. You see their celebration, then you gotta do your. All right, let's just do the same. Let's just do the same.
They were until I looked at a map of world time zones. It turns out that due to many countries' environments and no doubt bureaucracy, the uneven looking time zones are actually the norm, and that Britain, having only one time zone, is perhaps itself the weird one after all.
Really? What?
Thank you to my patrons.
Oh, what is that? Because Britain is all the same time zone, so most countries are like separate and that. So. Okay, so we're the weird ones.
Make these videos possible. If you would like to become a patron and join my secret...
Hey, interesting video though. Did rock my brain a little bit, but very interesting.